Hello, YouTube. Today I will be talking about what is considered undoubtedly one of the greatest Batman comics of all time, and undoubtedly one of the most famous comics of all time, Batman Year One. Now, uh, this story, um, you can probably tell by the title, it is the origin of Batman. However, it's also kind of a backstory for Commissioner Gordon, who is actually in this. He's not commissioner yet. He's only a lieutenant. Um, but yeah, th- this story follows both Batman and Gordon. Obviously in their much younger days, because obviously year one. I mean, that should it's pretty self-explanatory right there. Um, so you have you have you have Lieutenant Gordon, who is um, arriving from Chicago to come to Gotham help um, to basically help clean up corruption and stuff like that. Um, and he his wife Barbara is his wife Barbara has a child on the way. So so she's pregnant, and Gordon is really, really uneasy about raising a family in such in such a city like Gotham, and I mean, as he should. I mean, Gotham is hell, and I mean, um, and he is and he meets a and when he arrives at the airport, he meets Detective Flass, who is um who is sort of taking Gordon who is sort of like taking Gordon um under his wing, so to speak. The com- the commissioner sent Flass, to meet him at the airport. He Gordon has an appointment with him, so Flash was sent there to basically make sure that he didn't miss his appointment with him. um and the problem with Flash is that the problem with Flash, as with pretty much all as with pretty much most of the department in the story, is that um they're all like like corrupt and dirty, and um, they're basically all on Carmine Falcone's payroll, who is who is the crime boss of who basically runs Gotham City. And um, so he so pretty much everybody, from Flash to Commissioner Loeb to pretty much most of the cops in the department are all on Falcone's payroll. Um, and um, so Flash is basically taking Gordon around, kind of like like showing him the ropes and stuff like that, but like literally like in the worst way possible. um because like I said, Flash is dirty. um so like you have this one part in the story where where him and Gordon are, are just, driving along. And then, Flass sees some kids, on like a street corner, and, and he stops the car, he gets out, Flass gets out and goes over to one of the kids and just basically starts beating the shit out of him for like no reason at all. He goes up to him and he's like, "Hey, Stevie, mother know you're out here?" And and he basically starts beating the shit out of him for like no reason at all. And and Flass is a big guy, like like he has a he really, you can see here, he really knows how to use his size, to his advantage. And so he literally, he literally starts beating the shit out of him, for no reason at all. And Gordon is obviously, arriving in, Gotham City for the first time. So you get to see, like how he deals with corruption and how he deals with, just, like all of the, all of the messed up and crazy, and crazy stuff, in Gotham and, in the department and stuff like that. Bruce Wayne is, because like I said before, it's, it's not just about, the story isn't just about Batman, it's also about Gordon. So Bruce Wayne is arriving back. Bruce Wayne, now 25, is arriving back in Gotham for the first time in a long time. Excuse me, sorry. Is arriving back in Gotham for the first time in a long time. And his, the anger over losing his parents is as fresh as it, as fresh as it ever was. It's, his anger and his grief, over the loss of his parents is, as fresh as it was, back when he, back when he first lost them as a kid. And he is, and he's very much ready to do something about, about the crime and the corruption that plagues Gotham City. However, at the beginning of the story, he's not really sure. Like how to go about it. He's still trying to, like the first couple of pages here, like you see him training, like the first couple of pages here, like you see him training, you see him training here, and you see him training here, and he's still very much, trying, like to figure things out. And because while while he's ready, like emotionally, he's not, while he's, from, while he feels, he's very much, ready, to commit to, cleaning up Gotham and, cleaning up the city and stuff like that. He's not really, he knows that something is missing. Like he knows, he feels that he's like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm ready to do this, but there's something missing, there's something, there's something, there's something missing, and I'm not really sure what it is. So he goes on kind of like a reconnaissance mission here, and he walks the streets of Gotham. And he walks the streets of Gotham, and he's seeing, he's seeing, like how much worse it's gotten, since, and he's seeing, like how much worse it's, sorry, I can't talk today. He's walking the streets of Gotham, and he's seeing, like how much worse, the city has gotten, and part of him, can't believe, part of him can't believe, like just how bad it's gotten. So he gets into a fight with, I probably should have brought this up earlier. He gets into a fight with Selina Kyle, who is not yet Catwoman. In beginning of the story, she's actually a prostitute. And they get into a fight, and then they get into a fight, and then and then the one of the cops here shoots him, and they are, they're taking him away. And they're taking him away, and then he manages to escape. He manages to escape, and then he comes back to Wayne Manor. He goes back to Wayne Manor, and then at that point, a bat crashes, through his window. A bat crashes, through his window. And it's at that point that he finally gets the idea. He finally gets the idea to become Batman. And so the so you have, and it's interesting too, because you have two characters, you have two main characters, Batman and Gordon, who are, excuse me, both of whom are trying, both of whom, who are trying, to make a difference in a city, so corrupt and so dirty. But the difference is that you have one person who is trying, to basically work with, the cards that he's been dealt, even though they aren't, even though he, even though, deep down he knows that, it's, there's some part of Gordon that, there's some part of Gordon that knows, later on, later on, like he starts to question, he starts to question, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, like what, like, how am I supposed to, how am I supposed to clean up Gotham when there's no, when the city itself, like has no hope, because, because things are so bad. And then you have Batman, who is obviously, very much, who is taking the law, into his own hands, going out at night, scaring the shit out of, out of criminals, and doing the best that he can to, to give that city, to give this city, to give the city, hope, and, and someone, and, and something to believe in. And the one of the things I really, really love about this book is that there's very, very little science fiction in it. Like this book is very much in the shadows of the original, of the original Batman stuff from like the 1930s. So like you're not gonna so like in this book, you're not gonna see, you're not gonna see, you you aren't gonna see, like the Joker. You aren't gonna see, Two Face or Penguin or Scarecrow. You're not gonna see any of Batman's rogues gallery in the story. It's very much Batman going up against going up against going up against just various like crime figures and criminals and stuff like that. It's very the story is very, very grounded in it's very, very grounded in I want to say like real times. Like it's not, like if Batman were to ever exist, this is pretty much I think it's pretty safe to say that this is what his life would be like if Batman were real, because it's so grounded in um it's very, very realistic, and um it's very, very kind of like low tech, and um it's very, very like low tech, and very grounded in the real world. Like the Batmobile isn't even in here. So um and then you have Gordon, um who um you have Gordon who is also struggling, because again he is um again he's trying to clean up Gotham, and clean up um corruption and stuff like that. But he also um one of the things in the story that makes it a little harder for him um he meets a detective, a female detective in the story, named Detective Essen, and they end up having an affair. Um, they are both they both team up to take Batman down. Commissioner Loeb tasks with Commissioner Loeb tasks Gordon with taking down the Batman, and Detective Essen, who was brought over from another city to help with the Batman investigation. They end up working together, and then they get very close, and then they end up having an affair. And she really gives Gordon like someone to like lean on, and because obviously they're both cops, so they understand, so they both like understand each other, and they both um they understand each other. She understands like what he's going through, and the hard time that he's having um with everything that he has going on. And but at the same time, he also feels very, very guilty, because obviously he's already married. He has a child on the way. um but at the same time, there is very much an attraction there, because they both you know they both they have a lot in common, and um there is very much there is very much an attraction there, and there is very much um there is both like his wife obviously like isn't a cop, so she doesn't really so like on a certain level she can't really understand um she wouldn't really understand, like the hard times that, that Gordon is going through and what he's dealing with, um and stuff like that. But but Detective Essen, who is obviously, also a cop, um it gives she gives Gordon someone, someone to actually, like relate to and lean on, um and stuff like that. And um and and it definitely makes it a lot harder. um it definitely makes it a lot harder because Gordon, like in one part in the story, g- like in one part in the story, Gordon is home, like right here, he's thinking about, y- um Gordon is very, very conflicted in this part of the story right here, because yes, while Gordon is tasked, to take down Batman, he's also seeing, um he sees, like what Batman is doing, and he starts to see, he starts to see, not the he starts to see not just the good, that Batman is accomplishing, um but also the all the things, like how far, Batman has come in his mission, um to help Gotham and to clean up Gotham, and then, versus Gordon, who is very much struggling, to clean up Gotham and to clean up, corruption and stuff like that. But no, he he says here, he's very conflicted here, like he's talking about Batman, and he goes, I'm a criminal, and he goes, he's a criminal, I'm a cop, it's as simple as that. But but I'm a cop in a city where the mayor and the commissioner of police use cops as hired killers. He saved that old woman, he saved that cat, he even he even paid for that suit. um and so um so um Gordon is very, very conflicted, because he knows, like how dirty, the department is, and how, and just, like how much, and just, like how bad things are. Um and then eventually, you have a city that's not, you have a city that's not only ruled, you have a city that's not only ruled by, crime and corruption, but also, excuse me, you also have a city, um that, that's in a position where, like if it, like there's a, like if there's a crime going on or whatever, there aren't really that many, there aren't really, that many in a there really aren't that many people in a position, um, to do something about it. Batman and Gordon. I mean, yeah, I mean, there are a couple of, honest cops, or a few cops on the payroll, but Gordon, who ends up, in very, very hot water later on, um, towards the end of the story, um, like his, um, like, um, like, Commissioner Loeb, um, Commissioner Loeb, Brendan, head of SWAT team, who is also on, Falcone's payroll. Um, they find out about his they find out about his affair with with Detective Essen, and they basically use it to blackmail Gordon. And the one of the other things I really really love about this story is at the end of the story, um, like you have a scene here, and they actually do have a scene in the story where they actually go to, where together, Gordon and Essen are like I said, um, they're tasked to take down, Batman. So they're obviously trying to figure out, like who Batman is and blah blah blah, and they show up at Wayne Manor, and um and she says to at one point she says to the uh uh Gordon says, I spoke to Bruce Wayne's butler. Apparently he's been skiing in Switzerland for the past 6 weeks. Broke both legs and an arm. And Detective Essen goes, um, casts. She goes, casts would cover bullet wounds exactly where, um, exactly at the same exactly at the time, exactly at the same time, where Bruce Wayne received them. So she's putting two and two together. She's putting two and two together. And so at that point, they go to see Bruce Wayne, um, who has put on like this whole, pig like act, um, obviously to try to, to obviously, to try to make them think that, he's not Batman. And so like you have a part in here. Um, you have the part in the story where they're at Wayne Manor. Um, excuse me. And he is paid. He's paid some random woman. Um, he's paid some random woman, but basically, Bruce. Bruce, like, you're gonna like bribed, like this random woman to basically say, hey, I need you to do this for me. I need you to basically pretend, that we're together. Uh, blah blah blah. Um, and so he's putting on, like this whole, like pig leg, act. So he goes, so like he says here, he goes, I've been following your exploits, Lieutenant, and I must say I'm impressed. You're getting as much press. You're getting as much press as Batman. It is Batman you want to talk about, isn't it? Something about me being him, and he says, excuse me, it must be the champagne. I neglected to introduce my friend. You see, I'm not sure of her name. She doesn't speak any language I know. Um, she doesn't speak any language I know. So he's, you can probably tell he's putting on, like this, like this almost, almost like a show to, in an attempt, to obviously, like throw them off the, like in an attempt, to kind of like, like throw them off his, his trail, so to speak. Um, and, um, and eventually, oh yeah, and yeah, see here, so they both, Gordon goes with Barbara to see, to see, Barbara goes with Gordon to go see Bruce Wayne. Um, so they just leave. So they just left Lane Manor, and she goes, "He's a pig, Jim," and and Gordon goes, "He's acting like one, that's for sure." But so so you can see that he's not. Um, he did that. He did that whole thing on purpose, um, in an attempt, to obviously throw them off. But yeah, no, at the it isn't until the end of the story. Um, it isn't until the end of the story um where Gordon's son, um Carmine Falcone has um Carmine Falcone has Gordon's son, who's just been born. um he has him kidnapped, and obviously, like Falcone, Commissioner Loeb, they all arrange it to to have his son kidnapped. And um and then um Bruce Wayne, who obviously only goes out as Batman at night, um um who obviously only goes out as Batman at night. He goes out. um he obviously hears about this, and he goes after Gordon's son, and he um and then there's a really really nice moment in here when Bruce Wayne is so like you see here, like you see Gordon here, like racing, to try to save his son. And and then you have Bruce Wayne on a motorcycle, speeding past. Um and then um so and then you have Barbara, who's also there. And she and then she shoots Bruce Wayne, because obviously she has no idea who he is. And so you and so Barbara's like, like, "I'll kill you," and Gordon and Bruce goes, "Mrs. Gordon, you have to trust me. I won't let your boy die." So he's racing after. And remember, the and this is like a huge um this is a huge turnaround for Bruce, because remember, um she, when she first met him, he was putting on, like this pig, kind of like this act of, like, like being a pig, basically. And and now, um and now he is literally, doing everything within his power, to try to save her son. um so he he gets there. um and this line here is pretty much left up into is probably left up to interpretation. um it Because he rescues Gordon's son, and he goes, and Gordon, who lost his glasses in the fight with Carmine Falcone's son. He it, Who lost his glasses in the fight with Falcone's son. He goes, um again, this is left up to interpretation, but he goes, "You must be wearing some armor under that jacket." And he goes, "I'm practically blind without my glasses." And so it's left up to interpretation, whether or not, you know, Gordon knows, whether or not Gordon knows or not, that it's Bruce, standing in front of him, and not Batman. Because he says here, he goes, because the next thing he says here, he goes, Siren's coming, you better go. So, um, and that's why, at the end of the story, um, at the end of the story, um, at the end of the story, Gordon is in a much better place at the end of the story compared to when he started out at the beginning of the story. Um, because in the because remember I said, at the beginning of the video, um he was originally brought in, to help clean up Gotham. But what he really did, but what he really succeeded in was cleaning up the police department. Because at the end of the story, Gordon is he's now captain, of the police department. Um, he managed to get, with a little help from with a little help, here and there, Gordon managed to, um, he managed to get, all of the dirty cops and everybody else, put away. Um, so he becomes captain of, at the end of the story, he becomes captain of police. And, Barbara's not crazy about the marriage counselor, but we're making progress. So obviously, his wife found out, about his affair with Essen, and but they managed to, they they do manage, to work through it. Um, they do manage to work through it, and then but the real big, ending for the story is, um, it, the real big, ending of the story is, as for me, well, there's some real panic. Um, there's a real panic on. Somebody's threatened to poison the Gotham Reservoir, calls himself the Joker. I've got a friend coming who might be able to help. Should be here any minute. So, so that's why, the fact that he considers Batman, his friend by the end of the story is huge. Because remember, he was originally tasked, with taking Batman down. And then, but then, he realized, you know what? I'm going to bring up a line from Dark Knight Returns, because I think this really, really sums up, um, I think this really sums up, like, what I'm trying to get at. So, I'm going to do my best not to confuse you guys here. If I do, I apologize. That's not my intention. But so in Dark Knight Returns, um, Gordon, in Dark Knight Returns, Gordon is, about to retire. There is there is another police commissioner about to take his place. She does not trust Batman at all. And she says to he says to her, um, hang on, let me get the book. I'm sorry, folks. Hold on. I want to make sure that I get this quote right. Because I really, really do think that this really, really sums up, um, Gordon's, Gordon's, change of how he went from excuse me, from how he went from, not trusting Batman to, to eventually, being able to finally trust him. So um, let me find the quote here. Um, um, yeah, I'm sorry, folks. Hang on. Um, um, yeah, okay, I got it here. So he goes, um, so he's talking with the woman that's about to take over for Gordon, and he goes, and he says to her, and he says to her, um, um, and he says to her, um, he he's he says to her, I'm sure you've heard old folks like me talk about Pearl Harbor, and he says, here we were, hell, we were scared. Um, hell, we were scared. Rumors were flying. We thought the Japanese had taken California. We didn't even have an army, so there we were, lying in bed, pulling the sheets over our heads. And there was Roosevelt on the radio, strong and sure, taking fear and turning it into a fighting spirit. Almost overnight, we had an army. We won the war. Um, since then, presidents have come and gone, each one seeming smaller and weaker. The best of them faint echoes of Roosevelt. Um, and then he says, a few years back, I was reading a news magazine. A lot of people with a lot of evidence said that Roosevelt knew Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked, and he let it happen, and that he let it happen. Wasn't proven. Wasn't proven. Things like that. Things like that never are. I couldn't stop thinking how horrible that would be, and how Pearl was what got and how Pearl was what got us off Duff's in time to stop the access. And and then he goes, but a lot of innocent men died, but we won the war. It bounced back and forth in my head until I realized I couldn't I couldn't judge it. It was too big. He was too big. So, and that's what Gordon realized in by finally, being able to trust Batman. It's like, because in year one, he, remember, he did bounce back and forth. There's that part of him in the story, conflicted about, it's like, yeah, he's a criminal and he's outside the law, but but he saved this person, and he did this and this, and so I and but yeah, no, uh, this story is so fantastic. It's definitely, like the definitive origin for Batman. If you guys haven't read this, and if you're a Batman fan, I don't know what else to say. I mean, shame on you. This book is a I mean, this, like I said before, this book, it's one of the most famous comics of all time. It's one of the best Batman comics of all time. And if you haven't read this, then go to the see if your library has it, get it online, go to the comic store. I mean, just read it. I'm serious, read it. you know read it because you will enjoy the hell out of it. But anyway, let me know if you've read it. Uh, let, let me know what you thought of it. Like, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.